All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Shinovar. I know most of you here. If you don't know me, that's my name. We're here tonight at Wolf Creek Fire Protection, working on my Fire Service Instructor 2 project. It's out of Group B, project number 3. Doesn't really matter to you guys, but it doesn't matter for my video. So tonight we're going to talk about Firefighter Survival and what that means to us. You know, some of us are volunteers, some of us are career. It doesn't really matter where you end up in the lineup. We're all doing the same thing essentially, and we need to be prepared in the event that something goes wrong. So that's kind of what we're going to cover tonight. Where'd my mouse go? Here we go. See if I can get this to work without too fast here. All right, so the objectives for this course, participants will be able to identify Mayday calling parameters given a set of choices. Participants will be able to recite Mayday calling procedures with 100% accuracy. That's going to be one of our goals. Is if you don't know how to call a Mayday prior to tonight, we're going to talk about that and get you to where you can, and you can do it with 100% accuracy. All right. Participants will be able to define self-rescue without error. Participants, when given a scenario, will analyze the need for self-rescue without error. So based off what we go through tonight, we're going to put you in a situation with a scenario, and you're going to be able to analyze that scenario and be able to tell if you need to self-rescue or attempt, or what your move would be based on the scenario. Participants will be able to identify and demonstrate self-rescue skills with 70% accuracy. So sometimes we get out there and we start doing our skills. We don't expect you to have it hit on the nail every single time, especially not the first time. But as we work through them, you'll be to where you can definitely get the skill accomplished. So we're going to introduce the instructors. We're missing one right now, but he's going to be here a little bit later. So like I said before, my name is Adam Shinovar. I've got a little over 20 years in the fire service. Started out kind of young, like a lot of us in here did. And I'm currently a lieutenant with Farmington Fire Department. The next one we've got here, Mr. Joe Shuffler in the back. He's also got over 20 years in the fire service. He's spent time at various different ambulance districts. He's a medic as well. He's worked at various different ambulance districts and a couple different fire departments as well, and now he's landed with us, so he's a firefighter medic for Farmington. And then lastly, he'll be here just a little bit later after he gets off of his shift at dispatch. Matt Perry, most of you know him. If you don't, you'll get a chance to meet him. Same thing, he's got over 20 years in the fire service, kind of started out like I did, like Joe did. So there's a repetition here. I picked those guys for a reason, because they've been around for a while. We all got our start when we were very young. And the other reason behind that, Matt's an EMT, fire EMT with us as well. But the other reason that I picked these other two guys to help me out was that all three of us have been in a situation where we've either had to call a Mayday, we've been a part of a Mayday that wasn't ours, or we were in a situation that we should have called a Mayday. All right? So with that being said, you know, these folks can kind of throw in some insight on what those situations are like and how things are really going to go. Because I've told you before in some other classes, you know, we can stand up here and tell you till you're blue in the face what to do and how to do it. But until it happens, we don't know, right? But how do we fix that? How do we prepare for that? Train, right? We train. So the first thing we have to examine in this whole self-rescue concept is, are we prepared? When you come to the firehouse or you go on that call and you're rolling down 32 lights and sirens screaming, am I prepared for what I'm about to put myself into? Okay. Interior firefighting operations are still the most dangerous part of the job. Would you agree with that? That makes sense? Yeah, no surprise there, right? We also have this out of sight, out of mind mentality, meaning if it's not really happening all the time, I'm kind of putting that concept on the back burner as far as getting into trouble and needing to be rescued, right? Something we don't see all the time. So we kind of forget about it, that it is a real possibility. And the truth is that the same dangers exist every time. So it doesn't matter if it's a one-room burning fire or if this house is, 75% involved. We still have that same danger that's present. Okay. Another problem is the adrenaline. Adrenaline is going to mask our clear thinking. Okay? It's an adrenaline rush, is it not? You've paged out to a fire, you know you're going to be the first ones there. It's an adrenaline rush, right? So that adrenaline is gonna mask your ability to think and make wise decisions, especially when we don't get to do this on a regular basis. Okay? This desire to get to work creates tunnel vision. I'm just as guilty as the next person. I want to jump off the truck and I want to get to it. I want to get inside there. I want to be that guy. I want to do all the stuff that there is to do on the fire ground, but I got to be smart and tactful about it. And that's what some of this training is going to help you with. Fewer actual fire responses degrade the on-scene performance. So this is another thing. Are we prepared in the sense of our fire responses? We don't go to fires like we used to. I like to insert pictures, some of them for educational purposes, some of them for humor. We don't go to fires like we used to, right? There's just not as many of them. So without running these calls, think of somewhere like St. Louis City, right? Or your big Detroit, Indianapolis, right? These big cities that they go to fires every day, most of the time, multiple times a day. Those folks get really good at fighting fire, right? And we have people in this county that are really good at fighting fire, even only getting 30 fires in a year. But if we don't go to fires that often, it's going to degrade our performance. We're not used to it. We're not ready for it. That's going to dull our fire ground senses. So some of the signs, the things that we're concerned with, they become less recognizable because we're not doing it enough to be able to say, oh, I totally missed that. So signs of flashover, backdraft, collapse, those kind of things. We're missing those. And that's not just us, it's nationwide. Fire departments nationwide are getting into trouble because we're simply not doing it enough, or we're not training enough, and we're just missing. So that's what we're trying to eliminate, is the possibility of getting ourselves in trouble by standing back for a minute and looking at the big picture. So, picture on the right. Would that be a concern for anybody? Would you be concerned with that? Just looking at the house and what we're presented with. I would. I'm going to raise my hand. I'd be concerned. The house is very much charged with smoke. What is smoke?
Combustible fuel.
It's combustibles, right? It's unburned fuel. So smoke can burn.
Especially that smoke.
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic in itself.
Very turbulent.
All right. I decided to get in the way of my my last little sentence there. So NFPA involvement. So how we can learn about what's going on in our nation is through the NFPA studies. Okay, they collect data each year for firefighter fatalities for on-duty personnel. Doesn't mean folks that work career. Okay, their on duty is the following. This is what they classify as on duty. So when you see a line of duty death come across and say, well, the guy was a volunteer and he ran a medical call the night before and he dies at 8 a.m. the next day. Yeah, it qualifies because of one of these stipulations. So first one is being at the scene of an alarm, whether it's a fire or a non-fire incident. So that would include your EMS calls. Another one is responding to or returning from an alarm. So if you were to die in that kind of an accident, line of duty. Participating in other fire department duties such as training, maintenance, public education, inspections, investigations, all these things. How many times have you seen a line of duty death come across or come out in your email, Facebook, whatever, but it was training involved? Yeah, it's often, isn't it? It is quite often. We have other being on call or standby assignments for locations other than at the fire station. So if you were at somebody else's fire station, or you were doing a standby for an event, like you're working the races or something, and the car leaves the track, runs you over, and you're dead. Guess what? That doesn't count. So the other thing that they kind of put out is they look at what's killing us. What exactly is killing firefighters? So the first thing we're going to look at is cardiac issues. Okay, it's the leading cause of firefighter death since 1977 when they began their studies. Okay. Did anybody know that? already? Yeah, the leading cause. So, and it's caused by stress, it's caused by overexertion, pre-existing conditions, things of that nature, because the work that we do is very strenuous. Operating at fires or explosions, I'm sorry, this is in 2021 as well. So operating at fires or explosions, they had 28 numbered there, and 16 was at structure fires, 16 were volunteer members, 6 career and 6 contracted. So the numbers look funky to you. Would you expect those numbers to be differently? Maybe. Why is it the highest out of that whole group is volunteer?
Because there's more volunteers than there are here.
There you go. Because 75% of our nation is made up of volunteer fire departments, right? That's why we're always seeing the the volunteer side be higher in the line of duty or the injuries. There's just more of us. So a little graph there kind of goes with what they researched in 2021. Fireground is 40%. So the most times that we're dying in the fire service, it's a fireground related issue. So that's where we need to focus on our training. Fireground related topics. There he is.
Look at me, Jesus, keep talking.
So Matthew Perry, I introduced you earlier. For those of you that don't know him, that's Matthew Perry. Matt, we are we're filming live and we're going through the process here.
Perfect.
So the cause of the fatal injury or death goes along with the studies from 2021. Overexertion, stress, and medical related issues were over half the deaths accounted for in 2021. So we say we have a physical fitness problem? Maybe. So there's a lot of places, career places, that have a physical fitness policy that they make their employees work out, or they make them do this or that. Some places make it fun to where they've got pickleball in their station. An hour of pickleball a day counts for your physical fitness. Some of them have gyms, whatever they do. But that's their attempt to lower that number and to protect their folks. So 40 were medical related, cardiac, stroke, etc., those things. We had 4 firefighters killed in collapse from above. So something above them had collapsed, which chances are it's either a floor or a roof, right? And 2 firefighters killed in collapse from something below. So they were operating on a floor and it gave way, or they were operating on a roof and it gave way. 3 firefighters were killed by rapid fire progression. Rapid fire progression, that's where we have to get into learning how to look at smoke, look at a building, and understand what's going on inside that building and when it's time to leave or when it's time to change tactics. Okay? And we had 1 firefighter that got lost, disoriented, and he ended up dying. So it's very easy to do. I've been lost and disoriented myself. This picture here that I've got, this is actually a line of duty death fire as well. I didn't read into it, can't tell you what happened, but definitely looks like things went south, but that's pretty well involved. Here's just a little graph here to look at the career volunteer comparison out of the study. They had 35 volunteer deaths in 2021 and 27 career. So just like we kind of talked before, that number's higher because there's just simply more volunteer firefighters out there. The red is the volunteer and the dotted blue is the career. On the left there it tells you the number, and then on the bottom it shows you the year. So you can see from 1977 where they started the study till right about this 2021 how those numbers have fluctuated. And essentially it comes down to about every year we are killing about 100 firefighters each year. So, and with us being the volunteer side, and I'll even throw us in that mix, Farmington, because we don't get that many in-town structures. So, I'm working on the squad and I get to go to mutual aid fires, I'm probably not catching that many fires in a year's time. So we'll say that, pick on Joe. Joe had to move over to the pumper for a while. So now Joe lost all that time that he was going to fires on the squad, So now, Joe's skill set may start to drop because he didn't get to go to all these fires, doesn't get that exposure, doesn't have that experience, that continuous practice. So, 100 firefighters between the both of us a year. Just simply not doing it enough. We're not training enough. This did exclude, at the bottom it says it did exclude the firefighters that were accounted for in 2001, September 11th. So, they also excluded the COVID deaths between 2020 and 21. So that's just your standard, nothing crazy going on in the world. That's what we're looking at. Project Mayday. Some of you are probably familiar with this for whatever reason. Project Mayday, if you're not familiar with it, we're going to touch on it a little bit because there's some interesting things that came out of the study. So in 2015, there was a study released by a man named Don Abbott, who recently passed away this last November. And he did a huge study on firefighter deaths. And he looked at ages. He looked at what the task was being completed, who made rescues, what time of day. It breaks down all kinds of stuff. It's very interesting information. It's kind of eye-opening. So we're going to hit on that just a little bit. So in the project, of the deaths that he researched during the time of his research, search, rescue, and fire control accounted for 146. It's 50% of the deaths that were being studied. So 50%. Search, rescue, and fire control. Ventilation accounted for 24%, and search and rescue with the asterisk 16. So that was search and rescue without a hose line. Okay, so it might sound crazy to you, but it's not as crazy of a concept as you might think. Can be done. Anyway, overhaul. 9%, there was deaths during overhaul. What do you think causes that? It's essentially safe at that point, right?
Ceiling collapse.
Yeah, stuff falling down on you, right? Or you falling in a hole, nearly falling into a cistern 12 feet in the ground.
Roof coming in.
Outside support, so 1%. Had 3 people during that time of his study that died while being an outside support. Maybe it was a heart attack, something like that. Chimney falls on them, who knows what. A little more on his study. Activities that were being performed. I kind of like this one because it breaks down where are we getting into trouble. So the first one and the second one are very much similar. Fall or trapped in a basement and a fall through a roof. You got 23 and 22% is what the numbers ended up being for those 2 items. I like that one because for the longest time in this geographical area, it's been a big, oh, don't get on the roof, don't get on the roof. We don't need to do that. We can ventilate differently. And the big thing was, it's dangerous, it's dangerous. Yes, it absolutely is. But is it not the same amount of danger barreling into the first floor of a basement fire? Mm-hmm. Got fire below me still yet, right? And if I can't see, maybe I missed the hole. Maybe I don't. So, I don't know. It's just my take. Air problems was the next. It's important to train on SCBA emergencies. So know your buddy breather connections, know your universal air connections. You know, we fight fire together. You guys got MSA? We've got Scott. I don't know anything about your pack, but I know I can find your universal air connection. And I know how to hit that and plug that in. Trapped and entangled, that's 14%, pretty easy to get trapped and entangled. If you've ever been inside a house fire, everything falls down, right? Everything. Lost or separated from a line, it's not that hard to do either. No communication, 6%. Does everybody carry a radio when they go to a fire? If you are not carrying a radio on your person when you go inside of a building that is burning, please stop doing that. That is the worst thing, in my opinion, that you could possibly do, is go in without a radio. And 3% was medical. So there again, these are the folks that are having a heart attack, they're stroking out, whatever the case may be. Well, operating above the fire accounted for 45% of the mayday. Most common thing we're doing. So the other cool thing I like out of this study was who's making the rescue. This is something I never thought about until I got into researching the study. Who's actually getting these Mayday folks out? So working crew, 37% was a working crew. That means somebody else. If me and Joe are on a crew together and we call Mayday, Brian and his partner are the ones that got us out because they were just in the area. They were able to help us. Okay? Next part, the Mayday crew. So we're Mayday crew. 31% of the time we're able to get our crew out together somehow. We work our way out. Right? 21% of the time it was a self-rescue, so the firefighter that was lost or out on their own, they get out by themselves. Okay? And then the very last one, the lowest number, 11%, RIT or RIC. What do those mean?
Rapid intervention crew.
Crew and team, right? Just depends on where you're from or what you call it. So the crew or the team that is specifically set up to go in on a Mayday situation and pull people out is only getting them out 11% of the time. Why is that? Does anybody have a guess?
Because it's not always widely established.
Yeah, because we're horrible at it. We suck at setting up RIT. And it's been that way for a while. We tried some things a few years back. A couple departments were having RIT companies assigned on their alarms. And they would actually dispatch it as yada, 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 3160 for RIT. So I knew if I was riding on 3160 that day, I'm coming in and my assignment is RIT. And I kind of like that idea because right from the get-go, we're already saying, hey, we want to establish RIT. And so when you get there on 3160, you're grabbing all your stuff that you may need for a RIT operation. And we got out of it. It just didn't really take off. There was only a few places trying to do it. Never took off. So chances are when you call a Mayday, you're either going to get yourself out or somebody else that's already in the building working is going to come and get you. So you got to know self-rescue. That's really what it comes down to. They may not even be able to get to you where you're at. So how do we fix it? Just as I said, right? Training. So we're gonna talk about Mayday training. We're gonna train on Mayday, how to call a Mayday so that we understand how. What do we do if we get into trouble? The other one is Firefighter Survival training, some of the stuff that we're gonna go over tonight. And there's way more to this. The cool thing about living in this day and age is that you can jump online and you can Google Firefighter Survival training and you can find drills for days and creative ways to think outside the box, put yourself in some situations that maybe you got something that you can rely on. When it comes down to it, there's something in your back of your head that you've done that you can try to get yourself out of a situation. And obviously RIT and RIT training. So that's working with the RIT bags and establishing RIT teams and knowing what that involves. So if you ever get assigned to RIT, understand what that assignment really is and what kind of equipment you need for it. Some people don't understand that. They just think, okay, I'm RIT, that means I'm hanging outside until I get the next assignment. It's more than that. So we're going to review Mayday here just a little bit so that we understand the idea behind Mayday and how to call Mayday for those that have never seen it or heard of it. So it was adopted in 1923 by International Radio Telegraph as a distress call. The guy sitting here on the right in the picture, he was the individual that came up with it. His name was Frederick Mockford. He was a radio officer at an airport there in London. And it just simply means, help me, right? We know what Mayday means. This is how it came to be. And it came off of a French term. I don't speak French, but the French term sounded something like Mayday. I'll just say that. So international radio language, they wanted a way for basically worldwide that if somebody needs help, what can we have them say that everybody's going to know it? Mayday, Mayday, Mayday 3 times, right? It means life is in danger, immediate help's needed, something of that nature. I'm going to play this video. It may take a second for it to take off. It did earlier. It is a mayday from Houston, Texas from 2007. It's a captain. And they have a multi-story apartment building, it sounds like, and he's searching the 5th floor. And he runs out of air, or he's about to run out of air. So goes through a series of radio transmissions. Some of it's kind of hard to hear. I don't know if that's because they've fused together a couple of channels of radio traffic, or if that is literally one channel of traffic. So that part I don't know, but let's see if I can get this to play. Can you hear the vibe alert going off in the video on his regulator? Scott's have they vibrate when they get low. All right, so they got him out of the window. What do you guys think about what you heard? What's your impressions on that?
He was using way too much air.
Yeah.
Pretty
He was
heavy.
panicking.
So it was pretty cool that we could hear all of that, right? My guess is that he had a radio that when he pushed the emergency button, it was programmed that would stay open. A lot of places do that. When you hit that emergency button, the orange button, as long as it's programmed a certain way, it will stay open. As long as you're in a mayday situation, that's fine. Sometimes they get pressed accidentally and now you're wide open, but in a mayday situation, they're great because he has the priority. And I think that's where some of that started getting a little bit of garbled traffic because people are crossing over, trying to get in, trying to talk, and it's gonna be just like that. It's gonna be chaotic. People are gonna be excited. The people that are inside are gonna be definitely excited. As Ronnie said, he was using a lot of air. You could hear his breathing. It increased, guaranteed it increased than when he was actually working and searching.
Yeah.
In all fairness though, I mean, unless you've been in that situation or it's incredibly difficult to control your breathing.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I would probably be breathing 50 times a minute in that situation too.
Yeah.
I mean, as much training as you have to control your breathing, it's incredibly difficult to. And I thought dispatch did a horrible job myself because they didn't do a very good job of. I mean, how long was it before they actually told command that they had a trapped firefighter?
Right.
It seemed like it was 4 or 5 minutes. It may not have been that long, but it seemed like it was several minutes. And
Yeah, it's a system. And
it's scary.
It is.
I think command should have switched all other operations except for the Mayday to a different channel and just left the Mayday channel for that firefighter that was trapped.
Yeah.
And I've got some information on that too, kind of how we, just some graduated information on how we kind of operate on our stuff here locally.
I mean, you said that was Houston?
Yeah.
Okay, big department.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have like 4 or 5 command channels, and you could easily move, you know, we're usually Command B is our first, I'm talking about in the city.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
But usually Command B is what all fires go to, and if they had a situation like that, they would move probably to Command A, probably. It's up to whatever battalion chief has command. And ours has a constant alarm that comes over the radio if somebody has hit the emergency button. I don't know about theirs, but and I honestly never heard the priority thing too, but that's what it sounded like, because he sounded like he had an open
Yeah.
key the whole time. That's actually good. I never heard that before, but super freaking scary though.
Very. Yeah.
Hard to listen to, because you know he thinks he's dying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's tons of those out there. I mean, if you want an eye-opening and a reality check, like just get on YouTube and type in Mayday traffic and start listening to some of these. And you can hear people that are telling, tell the outside, tell my wife, tell my husband, whoever, the kids, I love them. Oh my God, I'm dying. It's brutal. But that's the reality of it as well. So, just a couple pictures there, just showing it's him on the bottom, of course, and they're getting him out of the window. So looks like a pretty heavy fire above him, maybe on that 6th floor. So,
And also, how did he get by himself?
I don't know. That's another thing that I'm sure that their investigation, and I just I didn't take the time to dig into it that deep, but that's yeah.
Is that-
It's understandable in an office building like that, smoke charge.
Yeah,
It's very
well,
easily done.
I'll give you
yeah.
a perfect example. I was doing another part of this. I'm doing this as an Instructor 2 project. Some of you guys came in a little later. So one of the deals was discussion. I've got to do discussion forums and things along the way as I'm working through this class. And the one topic was firefighter fatality. So the assignment was find a line of duty death report from NIOSH, read it, summarize it, share it back with the group, yada, yada, yada. And so I picked one that I was kind of familiar with from a guy that I follow pretty heavily, and I was like, you know what, I want to know more about that. So I picked this guy in Florida, and he goes in, It's him, a lieutenant, and a captain. They all make entry on this 1,200 square foot ranch home. It's charred, not a big deal, pretty routine for these guys. They go in, makes a bedroom on the left-hand side of the hallway. The victim goes in with the lieutenant and the hose line, and captain stays in the hallway. Something happens, they fire up a fan, I think it is, at some point, and it starts to deteriorate. The captain says, "Hey, it's time to get out of here. Hand me the nozzle real quick." He's gonna throw water down the hallway. They're gonna go back the same way they came out, or came in. So they're like, lieutenant says, "Hey, give me the nozzle." Don't have the nozzle. What do you mean you don't have the nozzle? So the guy's in there, loses the nozzle, just in the bedroom. So he's in the bedroom, lieutenant's in the doorway, captain's in the hallway. Don't have the nozzle. Oh, we need to get out now. So they go out 1, 2, 3, captain, lieutenant, and nobody else behind them. And they find this guy farther into the house in a kitchen area, and collapse had happened and all this stuff, so it buries him, and it takes them like 50 minutes to find the victim. But it was just like that. How do you lose the nozzle when you're just inside a one single bedroom, and how do you lose your guy? I don't know. It's hard to say without being there, but it happens.